We are starting with the keys to a successful year-end appeal and why we should be planning when right now. I am actually going to turn it over to Jake Lyons in Chattanooga to get us started.
All righty. Thanks so much. Yeah, I also love the new logo. About every 10 years, we kind of update our look and branding, and we thought this one was kind of cool. And a new website came with it. We have all these little fun shapes. When the design firm did it, they actually named these specific colors. So that's the people's blue you're seeing there, and then lion's yellow, which I thought was kind of cool. So that's a specific hexadecimal code, a very unique yellow that they chose for us. So I thought that was kind of a neat little Easter egg there. One quick thing on the logo too. Way back when, the company was actually based in Aspen, Colorado. And the shape of the lion is inspired by the shape of an aspen leaf. So if you look at like the left half of it, you can kind of see that curve. That was where the design element kind of came from. So just kind of a fun Easter egg for those of you who like design things like I do. With that, let's get into year in appeals. Next slide. Before we talk about some of the best practices and what we've seen work and what our clients who've done really well with their year-end appeals have been doing, just want to talk about why year-end appeals at all. And every year we think, is this the year that we're going to stop doing direct mail? Is it not profitable yet? Is paper dead? Still no. We'll let you know when this is no longer a good idea. But just to look at some data from the past year, this is a combination of Bloomberg, Blackbaud, and then actually some data from the US Postal Service. They publish a lot of their numbers as well. So if you want to look up some of the sources and do some more reading on this, that's where we got all these statistics. So just why send a year-end appeal at all? So still obviously a very profitable part of your annual giving strategy. You're not going to bring in a lot of big gifts this way, but this is kind of your base. Annual giving for most nonprofits is like over 80% of your donors, not 80% of your money. That comes from obviously major gifts, but 80% of your total people, your humans giving to your organization are annual gifts. And this is a huge component of that still. Over half of US charities, this is from last year, still get a majority of their gift revenue October through December. There was no exception to that in 2020. There was no exception to that in 2021 either. We don't expect that to change this year as well. It's been the case pretty much, all the way through. I think something like a third of giving happens in December, but not only that, like 11% of all giving happens in the last 3 days of the year. So really the year-end giving, especially for this level of donor, is pretty important. A huge portion of the annual giving or year-end giving comes from those, what we call smaller donors, under $1,000 donors. So when we're looking to capitalize on as much as possible, that's the demographic that we're targeting specifically. It's not necessarily our entire donor base, but it's this base of new donors, first-time donors, lower end, younger donors, kind of your quick one-off people who tend to spread around their charity for a variety of organizations are the ones you're going to be capturing back half of the year. According to the US Postal Service and a couple of things we got from Blackbaud, a couple of different sources use this same number. In last year, the direct mail response rates for charities was 5.3%, which we thought was great. I mean, that's high. Your email response rates in comparison are like less than a tenth of that. So we know that direct mail, in terms of just getting people's eyes on your brand, on your materials, on whatever your project is, we know it works 1 in 20. So if you send out, 20,000 letters, 1,000 people are going to check out your appeal. That's a pretty big deal, we thought. Next slide. Some more data from the US Postal Service. Thought this was kind of fun. 55% of people report they look forward to opening their mail. And I actually just want to check this. If you have your camera on, raise your hand if you actually enjoy opening or going to get your physical mail. I kind of like it. Usually it's like bills and advertisements, but I think it's kind of interesting, especially when you compare it to like opening your email. Like I never look forward to opening email. Especially when I have a bunch, but like mail's kind of fun. You get to walk out the mailbox. It's nice out, all that kind of stuff. So 55%, over half of people look forward to opening mail. So that's already one leg up. 56% find mail more trustworthy than emails. You know how occasionally you get the email from the Nigerian prince who just needs to escape from whatever country, and you just got to send them $5,000 and they'll send you $1 million. You don't tend to get those in direct mail. It'd be very expensive. Scammers and spammers have a much easier time sending out thousands or tens of thousands of fake emails because it's free or very inexpensive to do so. Where if you're going to send out tens of thousands of scam paper mails, you're going to have to pay for the postage and everything else. So more likely to be trustworthy mail. And at least that's the perception from 56% of donors and people who would open their mail otherwise. It often will give you a leg up over smaller nonprofits with smaller budgets. This is one of those things that tends to get omitted when people have kind of the super floor fundraising budget and they're not able to do something. This is one of the first things to go, or they do it entirely digitally. So if you're able to get in front of that older demographic, particularly by spending a little bit of money on a direct mail appeal at the end of the year, you can get in front of more eyes than those who cannot afford to do so. So if you have that leg up, definitely want to use it and take advantage of that. Most charities will still indicate a return on investment for direct mail. Even if you're spending some money, you almost always will get at least your return on investment back, plus some, plus the brand recognition on top of that. So it's usually worth it. Very, very, very few situations in which it's not worth it financially alone. And it's also a very time efficient way to capture first-time donors. We talk a lot about donor retention and stewardship, and we obviously want to focus on that. But we also like to have new people invited into our mission every year. And this is a very quick way to capture a whole bunch of new ones at once and to begin the follow-up process, even if it's manual, even if we're calling these people, we get a gift, we start creating relationships, but we have to have that first touch point somehow. And this is usually a wonderful way to get that started. So year-end appeals good. These are the reasons that we feel that they're still worth your time, effort, energy, and money. Let's talk about some specific tips on how to optimize your year-end appeal. So first of all, I know it feels early. I know it's August, but this is really when you need to start planning. Your timeline doesn't have to look exactly like this. But there's quite a few institutions, us included, and just based on anecdotal data, that this is kind of the timeline that will make it feel the least stressful and pressured. So in August, you want to review last year's data. That's the first thing we want to do. If we sent something last year, let's look at our open rate. Let's look at our profitability. Let's look at new donors. Let's look at repeat donors. Let's just kind of review all of the data that we got from last year. Hopefully we have good data, or we've collected some information on how we performed last year on our annual appeal toward the end of the year, and just kind of talk about some of the trends. That's kind of the first thing, because it helps you set your plan in place. Next, also in August, so also in the next couple of weeks here, begin to kind of lay out your timeline a little bit. So you're going to make your plan. You're going to set your specific numerical goals about how much you want to get. We're going to send out this many letters. We hope to have a response rate of this percent. Last year, we brought in $30,000 or $10,000 or $5,000, and we hope to beat that by this much this year. And here's how we're going to beat that. Through the month of September, you want to begin segmenting your list. We'll talk about that a little more in detail, but not sending the same appeal to your entire constituency is going to help you a lot. So you're going to have those different lists, and how do you target those appeals, and what are each ones are going to say? Just begin to plan that, kind of sketch it out, and talk through how you're going to segment that up. October is the month you'll actually do the writing itself. You can even start that process with outlines in September, but you really want to have those final drafts done by the end of October. So however you have to pace it for yourselves to have, I've got final copy ready to mail, ready to send to the printer by the end, basically by Halloween. That's kind of what we're aiming at. You're generally going to be okay. Data showing still that first week of November, leading in maybe the second week of November, is the most effective time to send. We'll talk a little bit about why that is. But we have, especially when we have multiple rounds of appeals, you want that first mailing to go out just a little bit before everyone else. This is when people start to think about giving more. You're going to have a lot of stuff going on in December probably. So the best time to send that first round of stuff is like the weekend of November 9th or whatever, just according to national data that we've been collecting over the last couple of years. Over the months of November, December, to schedule up as many follow-up phone calls or follow-up asks, email appeals, mail. We'll have kind of some specifics on that as well. But you have your whole process. This is not really a one-off kind of situation. You send the letter, you see how it does, it comes back. We want to go a little bit further than that and try to engage with that same constituency in a couple different ways, in kind of a well-branded and a well-identified way across those couple of months, leading all the way up through the end of the year. That, of course, encompasses Giving Tuesday in late November as well. And then in January, once everything is said and done, you've kind of gotten your year-end appeal. It's December 31st. As much as you can catalog and collect data and kind of write down, here's what worked, here's what didn't, just so you're prepared and you don't have to think about it again until next August. It'll really help you out for the first half of the year when you don't have time to worry about this kind of stuff. So again, not the exact perfect way to do it, but we've talked to several different people. We've worked with a bunch of organizations who've kind of paced it this way, and we've found this is the pretty optimized timeline without loading a whole bunch of work into 1 month, and also targeting people at the right months. So feel free to use that, but definitely start planning now at a minimum. A quick question from Elizabeth: how do you get open rate if it's direct mail? So we're talking about return rate when it comes to physical mail, and open rate would only work if you have the ability to collect that digitally, like with an email server. So for direct mail, you're hoping that so many people are going to open it, but you can get how many responses you get back, and you can track that one. Otherwise, it would be very, very difficult. So that's a good question, and probably should say response rate instead of open rate. That'd be a better way to clarify that for sure. Next slide. Okay. So be honest, we tried to get 10 keys to the perfect year-end appeal just through talking to everyone and collecting data and doing research. But we ended up with 15, and we couldn't figure out which ones to eliminate. So here are 15. They're supposed to be the top 10, but it's the top 15. They're in no particular order. They're just kind of all in there. But kind of walk through these 15 ideas and optimizations for your mail appeal for the end of the year. So first and foremost, definitely want to segment your list. Your current donors should not get the same letter as your first-time donors. You want to try to include a thank you, some kind of acknowledgement that they've given in the past. And I know this is difficult, but at a minimum, take that list that you buy or that list that you have and pull out the people who have given in the last year or given to last year's appeal. So they don't have this kind of generic, non-branded thing. They know who you are, hopefully. And they should get something a little bit different, something a little more personalized, hopefully. So at least pull out your current donors so it doesn't feel this generic push to everybody. Your response rate or your open rate or your return on investment will go up for that directly for sure. One thing a couple of our clients have done, and we've talked about this a few times over the last couple of months, is consider just a smaller thing, like a postcard, like a front and back, 8 by 11 or whatever for first timers, and then more of a packet for repeats. So you're trying to capture those with less expense, so you're not sure if they're going to give or not. Something that's really clear and easy, and hey, go on our website to learn more. But the ones that you want to share the more information with, the ones you more guaranteed to get a gift from, they get, the full letter, which opens up and has the different papers in it. You can save a lot of money that way. And it also allows you to be more specific with what information you're giving to whom. If you buy a mailing list, try to focus on that boomer and mature demographic. Those are the two generations that are kind of the 55 plus right now. We know that the response rate for those age groups are much, much better. So if you're going to buy a list, maybe segment it or make it smaller in a way that you're going to target people who are going to get a higher response rate from total. Again, a great way to save money and improve that return rate. You want to, as much as you can, especially with younger donors, supplement with identically branded emails, a series of emails that go out, maybe send 4, 1 a week for the month of November, or send 10 that are spread out over those 2 months. Have social media posts that have the same kind of look and branding, and post those occasionally. So when people see that mail, they're used to seeing, oh, these are the colors and this is the logo and this is the project. And they get that kind of continued exposure in the same way you would with advertising to get this information to them. They may not make a decision right when they see it. Oh yeah, so they sent me this thing in the letter. Maybe I should send them something this year. And just kind of have that long campaign or little mini campaign that goes along with your appeal. If you can, try to pick a specific objective or project you want to fund. And you're thinking, well, none of our projects are small enough for that to work, or we're kind of in between campaigns, or we're ramping up for one that this is weird. If you can pick a specific initiative, hey, we want to raise this amount of money because this amount of money gets us to do blank. It helps so much more for the why. Just this donor data in general has shifted away from, oh, we're the charity, we promise we'll spend your money nicely, into this, we have to have the outcome. What is the specific outcome? If I give you this money, what are you specifically trying to accomplish? I know you're trying to feed the hungry, or I know you're trying to save, whomever, but in what ways you're doing that, and how is this money going to help you do that? How will you spend this money? So if you can have a specific mini objective as part of the appeal, it really helps with the why and gives people a reason to go, okay, yeah, I mean, I like what they do, but here's a pretty neat thing they do. I hope they can accomplish this by January. Let me help them out. So that tends to help a lot too. Next slide. Number 6, set a time goal with urgency. This is one of the easier ones it's just kind of like a sales tactic, it's a fundraising tactic, but have an expiration date on this thing. We're trying to raise X to fund X, or X to fund Y, and we have to get it in by December 31st. between now and the end of the year, we're trying to do X. So they have some sort of urgency, like, oh yeah, I'll give, but oh, I actually do need to give now because they're trying to get this done before the end of the year. So just have that time expiration. It could be totally arbitrary internally, but give your donors some kind of an expiration on that written material. The next thing you want to do is obviously retarget all your successful gifts from last year with a specific thank you. So if they're not a donor that you know personally or you have a relationship with, but you're like, oh, they sent in $100 last year, they sent in $25 last year. Whether they're on your segmented mailing list or not, they should get their own list, or they should get some kind of something again. People who give once are so much more likely to give again. Hopefully you've done a good job with stewardship, with sending information and inviting them to things, so that this is not the next time they're hearing from you necessarily. But regardless, if they've given in the past, go ahead and give them another thing. They're so much more likely. You're like 50-50 on whether you're going to get another gift by doing that. So definitely want to retarget all the successful ones from last year. Again, highlighting the importance of looking at your data. Obviously want to include lots of graphics and photos, so it's not a plain text. If what you can do to kind of get around that, if you want to have kind of a body of text and it looks like a letter, have a letter in there, but then have the envelope have some photos on it, or have a little postcard insert that has infographics and photos of people under care, or whatever it might be, stock photos. It's something that is going to be other than just a letter. You do want to have that kind of form letter if that's the way that you're going with it. It tends to be very effective, but if you can include other things in the packet that aren't just a block of text, it helps you out a lot. QR codes for people who want to go online and give via the internet on their credit card. A lot of times people will send in checks, especially people in the mature demographic will write you a check, put it back in the return envelope and send it to you. That's awesome. It's easy. But if you can have a way of getting directly to your credit card screen or directly to your like mini campaign screen on your website with a simple QR code, those are free to create. They're very easy. Highly recommend throwing one on there. It just makes a big deal. If you have the ability to build a section of your site or just like part of a page branded with the same stuff, so it has the same look as your appeal and the social media posts that you're putting out and the email campaigns you're putting out, if you can get a section of the site, so when they go to the site, they're like, ah, yeah, this is it. I scanned the QR code and it took me right to the place. I know this is right because it looks just like the letter. Makes a big difference. Don't forget about Giving Tuesday. Giving Tuesday is still big. It's not going to capture your donors who are going to give anyways, but there are people who just give on Giving Tuesday to somebody regardless. So really, we don't have to convince anybody. We just have to be first in line. So don't forget about Giving Tuesday. We'll have some more form information on how to optimize that later, but this is also in that same time frame, so you can kind of throw it in there or weave it in as part of that. Definitely don't want to forget about it. Next slide, number 11. If you can use a singular story about a singular person instead of a bunch of stats on how many people you help or how many people you serve, it will increase your response rate. Facts tell, stories sell. One story about one person, activates the emotional side of our brain, which is the same side associated with giving. You want people out of the factual logic side because they're parting with money. So you want them into the emotional, I need to help people side of their brain. And the story is the perfect way to do that. If you can include it, it goes a long way. Consider a checkbox with a monthly option. You'd be surprised how many repeat donors you'll get just by putting it on there. People go, oh, I didn't realize this was a thing you're supposed to do monthly. Okay, I can do that. So instead of getting $100, they're at $10 a month for forever. And within a year, you've already made more on that one donor, and they've already been involved with your organization because now they're in it and they're getting the information. So if you can just throw a monthly checkbox option, you're not going to have a ton of people who do that, but for those who might consider it, it's a great way to increase your revenue. One thing we've seen worked really well, and this is the perfect time to try to find it and plan it. It's definitely not too late. Is consider a matching gift. Lots of organizations love using the between now and December 31st, your gift is doubled. That's super powerful. It's super easy. And all you need is one big donor to be like, oh, yes, I will give you this gift anyways, but you can use my gift as a matching gift to try to bolster your annual gift effort. So like Donna just got the $150,000 gift. Maybe go back to that donor and say, hey, we have this awesome idea. Could we use this gift as a matching gift between now and December 31st to try to get people excited about their gift being doubled for our annual appeal? Not necessarily always the way to do it, but it's a really popular way. Gives another reason, another sense of urgency to get people excited about doing that. Another thing that that brings up the response rate quite a bit, just according to data that we've collected from Blackbaud, is about 10 times the response rate is to have a handwritten something or other on the appeal. This is a ton of work. So you have to kind of check yourself and be like, who gets the handwritten ones? Do you, the staff person, have time to like write little personal notes on all the ones you know or might know, or maybe not? You just write a little personal note anyways. It's the same psychology that works with, you ever go to a restaurant and you get the bill and the server has written like, thank you, smiley face on the check. That increases tips by some percentage, like 20% or something like that. It just gives a little more of a human element. It's the same thing, just like a little tiny note. You can have your committee members do this. This is a kind of a fun thing to sit down, kind of a wine and sign party. But we know that if we can get those written on there, it will increase the response rate up to 10 times, just because people, it feels more human. It feels more real than just this, oh, this big organization sent me a letter. And then lastly, talk about the difference the gift will make specifically. If we can get X people to give X dollars before January, we can feed or help or save X people. So you don't always want to go heavy with the statistics, but here's just like a really simple why sentence. Like just fill in the blank with what you got between now and December 31st, gives it the urgency, it gives you the specific, it gives you the time frame, it gives you how it's going to be spent, how it's going to help people, and the why, all in one pretty short sentence. So just throw that in there somewhere. Makes a big difference, tends to help a lot. So those are our 15 tips. Again, we couldn't narrow it down to 10 because we thought those were all pretty good. Don't have to absolutely check every single box and do all of them, but the more of those that you do, your better your response is going to be, the cheaper this is going to be for you, and the more worth your time the appeal will be as a whole. So that's how we got. Quick question before we move on. What would you suggest is the lowest gift to use as matching? Could you use a pledge? Yes, you can absolutely use a pledge. We've seen gifts as low as like $10,000 or $25,000. If you're expecting like a $10,000 or $25,000 return or gross on your annual appeal, that's a perfectly fine gift size. Like you want to make sure that it's appropriately scaled, but someone at that special gifts level is still fine. You don't necessarily need a $250,000 gift to get you there, especially if you're not expecting a $250,000 in annual appeal revenue. You just need something that's going to be maybe a little outside the normal stretch, but you definitely want to try that, and it's been fine. There's, quick conversation with the donor. Doesn't have to be anything in writing or official. They're going to give the gift anyways, but you don't really have to talk about that. It's just a way to get people excited. And then you can talk about, afterwards, we did it, we raised this much, which actually means this much. Big deal. People feel great about their gift in that way. So great question. All right, next slide. We're going to look at some examples. And to do that, I'm going to turn it over to Shauna to walk us through some of the best practices that we see on the actual appeals themselves.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jake. That was wonderful. So this is a relatively recent letter that was used by one of our clients in Florida. Shout out to Cornerstone Hospice. I know a few of you are on the phone here. So this letter, it encompasses a lot of what we just talked through. So preserving our mission, they've got their mission statement up there. This is kind of an all-encompassing letter to talk through wonderful things that are brought to the community. So we've got our dear, this is a letter that should be generated. Again, this is something that you shouldn't be putting a ton of work into. I know of organizations who still do this, like they plug in all this stuff. This is a mail merge, right? We want to be able to work smarter, not harder, in terms of being able to produce these letters. So they are talking about a specific project that is being supported, which is the hospice house that they are raising money for in Orlando. So they are talking about a specific project. They're talking about what their mission is. They're talking about what it is that they specifically do. Compassionate 24-hour care in place. They are touching on a few personal, we're talking about families. We're talking about the most intimate times in your life. So they are using a lot of buzzwords that connect with the reader, because this is a lot of text, right? That's well thought out, because the audience for this letter is going to be the type of reader, right? They're going to be people who are interested in reading. These are the type of people who want to see the details there. So another piece that's important there is Chuck signed this. Chuck, the president and CEO, signed this. That makes me feel important as someone who is reading this letter, right? So the other piece that I really like about this is that this is a thankfulness piece. This piece is, you have been supportive of us. We are able to do this in return. We cannot continue to do what we do without you. So it's thanking just as much as it is asking. And I think that that is a really powerful, as a reader, as someone who goes out to the mailbox and opens the mail, I want to feel like I'm a part of what it is already, right? So this is a great example of a year-end appeal that is used to garner, and Cornerstone has a very successful annual appeal in terms of their donor segments and being able to have a great response rate. Next slide there, please, Trish. Okay, so this is one that has, we're going to go with the letter on the left there first. So this is an example of a segmented letter. This is to smaller donors. This is to people who are going to be giving those smaller gifts, and a few pieces to highlight here. So that together up in the right-hand corner is their specific project. So they're fundraising for an emergency department rebuild, hence the ER at the end. So they're branding it with the community. The community has brand awareness to what this campaign is. And then the really great piece there in the middle, if you notice, there is a specific story that Jake talked about earlier. So there is a story about a well-known community person who received care in this actual area that they are fundraising for. So they are able to associate the money that they're giving with care that was provided in their community. A big deal. Lots of great pieces here, call out boxes, visually impactful. This was done in the fall, so hence the tree. And then really important as well at the bottom, those two signatures of Kim McMillan and Patty Hahn, those are two extremely well-known people within the community that put their John Hancocks on this piece of paper. So when I open this as a donor, I see those two people listed there, and automatically it brings credibility to whatever I'm reading. And a lot of times it doesn't even really matter what's in it. If I see those signatures of people that I know, I'm automatically bought in, especially if I'm already a donor. So this is segmented. This again is not to your larger donors. This is to your smaller donors, hence the annual gifts committee chair. And there are lots of different elements that go into this letter that are helpful for being able to increase your annual appeal. Very well done. The next piece is your little pledge card there. So give online, we've got that at the top. We want to be able to give them the option for that. These pieces were created, I think, before QR codes were terribly popular. So we'll put that out there. But yes, I will help patients like Tim. So it refers to that. With a gift to the campaign, the specific campaign, please accept my gift of these amounts. And then it gives you different pieces. I'm interested in volunteering. I'm interested in leaving a legacy to the hospital. So it is creating that thought process, right? We don't just want you to give a gift of this. We want you to get engaged. We want boots on the ground. We want you to be a volunteer, because then we know we can get access to more of your time, talent, and treasure. And also, we want you to start thinking about leaving your legacy. So when we are able to get someone to open a piece of mail or look at a marketing piece or an appeal on behalf of our organization, we want to make sure that we are getting the best bang for the buck. So we want to be making sure that we are getting the wheels turning in terms of legacy, in terms of volunteering, in terms of smaller gifts, in terms of larger gifts, in terms of the care that is being provided or the education being provided. We want to be able to do all of those things with a piece of paper. No big deal, right? But if we're going to do it, let's do it right. Next slide, please, Trish. Common mistakes to avoid: starting the planning process too late. I find this funny because we were kind of joking as a team earlier that procrastination on your part does not institute an emergency on my part. I bet we have all been a part of annual appeals that have been started too late, and we're rushing. We get names wrong, we get lists wrong, there are spelling errors, there are all these types of things. Another organization got theirs out before ours. That's why we're saying, yes, it is August. Yes, it is time to start thinking about your annual appeal. So if you need that timeline that we suggested, please reach out. We're happy to send that to you. One generic appeal sent to an entire list. Please don't do that. my hate emails or phone calls that I've gotten throughout my career almost always come from annual appeal letters, inevitably. Now you can turn those around, but if not done properly, people can get irritated about the smallest things, how their salutations are, that they've already donated to you, but this letter sounds like they've never donated to you, or vice versa. Do your homework, make sure that you segment properly and that people are in the right pieces. And like Jake said, if you don't have the ability to have a well-oiled, massive machine in terms of your annual appeal, start small, do 2 segments, be able to create data that supports you being able to grow that. Generic ask, support our organization instead of support a specific project. Please do not say support my organization. Here's why. Talk about a specific project, talk about a specific student, talk about a specific patient, talk about a specific family. You can change their name, but give that reader something tangible to help with, okay? Don't just say, help this big organization or this big building or this big name that you've heard of, because other people are doing it and doing it well. Don't omit online giving options or a QR code. How easy is it for a person to open your letter, set it aside, be done with it, right? Absolutely. We all do it. We say, and a lot of times we'll say, I'll get to that. And then by the time we open it, it's 2 months down the road and we feel silly for even responding. But if you've got a QR code on there, I feel like I can just scan that real quickly and be done. Bam. Okay. So include them. Like Jake said, they're free, they're easy, include them. Omitting time sensitivity. Time creates urgency, right? We need your money. We need it now to do this. Not just when you get around to it. Go ahead and scan your QR code and get it to us ASAP. And getting the names wrong. Oh, this is a big one. Please just don't do that. Please just learn from me. Make sure that if it is going out and it has your name on it, that you make sure to check all of them. Okay. It is just, and if you need help with that, you don't know how to do correct salutations or anything of that sort, please reach out to us. We'd be happy to help you with that. Next slide, please, Trish. All right, so final thoughts start now. December will thank you. Your organization will thank you. Understand there is no substitute. We are not saying to put all of your time into annual gifts and to not think about major gifts. All right. Please do not hear that out of this message. We want you to continue to focus on signature gifts and special gifts, all the pegs within the wheel, but please know that annual giving is a great bottom of the pyramid and helps you to grow your philanthropic efforts. Send in early November, optional second send letter in December. And personalization, please consider taking out at least 20, 50, 100 and writing personal notes on them, having your chair do it, having whoever it is do it. That helps your return so much.